A godly woman leads with purpose, not ego. This is not just a statement, it's a principle that cuts through the noise of today's self-centered world. We live in a culture that rewards attention, that uplifts those who push themselves to the front, that celebrates loudness over depth. But the godly woman, she operates differently. She doesn't need the spotlight to lead. She doesn't need applause to feel valuable. Her compass is internal, not external. Her motivation comes from something far more powerful than the need to be seen. It comes from the conviction of purpose. She understands that leadership isn't about control. It's not about being in charge for the sake of power. It's about responsibility. It's about the weight of influence. It's about what she carries inside of her and how she chooses to show up in the lives of others. A godly woman wakes up every day knowing that her choices, her words, her actions, they ripple out into the world. They touch her children, her spouse, her coworkers, her friends. She doesn't lead to elevate herself. She leads because she has something worth sharing. Faith, strength, love, wisdom, and truth. This kind of leadership is not aggressive. It's intentional. It's not fueled by competition but by conviction. A godly woman doesn't need to prove she's better. She simply aims to be faithful. And in doing so, she becomes a lighthouse. She stands firm when others waver. She offers clarity when others are confused. She shines not because she wants attention, but because the light inside her cannot be hidden. She understands that her influence isn't determined by the size of her following, but by the depth of her impact. That's why she leads with humility. Humility is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's knowing that you could force your way forward, but choosing instead to walk with patience, with gentleness, with grace. And that kind of leadership creates trust. People follow a godly woman not because they're afraid of her, but because they respect her, because they feel seen, heard, and valued in her presence. Because her leadership doesn't crush, it uplifts. She doesn't let ego dictate her decisions. She doesn't manipulate to get her way. She listens more than she speaks. She seeks to understand before she seeks to be understood. And in doing so, she leads from the heart. The godly woman understands that real leadership is spiritual. It's not about titles or positions or platforms. It's about obedience. It's about staying aligned with a higher calling, even when it costs her comfort. She has nothing to prove, because her worth has already been spoken over her by the one who created her. She's not chasing success by the world's standards. She's pursuing significance by heaven's standards. She measures progress not by how much she gains, but by how many lives she touches. She builds, she uplifts, she protects, she prays, and most importantly, she never forgets who she belongs to. That identity keeps her grounded. It keeps her focused. It keeps her from getting lost in the praise or in the criticism, because her purpose is fixed. A godly woman is driven by eternal values. She sees the bigger picture. She understands that every moment, every conversation, every decision is an opportunity to reflect the goodness and grace of God. She walks in rooms with peace in her eyes and strength in her soul. She doesn't need to raise her voice, because her presence speaks, her peace speaks, her character speaks. That is leadership, not forged in ego, but formed in devotion. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are, and that confidence can't be shaken by opinions, trends, or storms. The godly woman carries that confidence with her. It allows her to stand firm when others fall apart. It allows her to lead with clarity when others are confused. It allows her to forgive quickly, love deeply, and serve boldly, not because it's easy, but because she understands the power of grace. Leadership in her life looks like sacrifice. It looks like setting an example when no one's watching. It looks like loving people who are hard to love. It looks like being consistent in a world that rewards shortcuts. She doesn't bend her values for temporary gain. She doesn't compromise truth for popularity. Her leadership is steady, honest, and bold, because it's not about her image, it's about her impact. She doesn't seek to dominate, she seeks to steward. That's the difference between ego and purpose. Ego says, look at me. Purpose says, follow truth. Ego pushes to the front. Purpose waits and walks in alignment. Ego demands. Purpose serves. A godly woman always chooses purpose, because she knows that her life is not her own. She was placed here for a reason, and leadership for her means walking in that reason with open hands and a willing heart. Her identity is rooted in values, not validation. A godly woman doesn't rely on the shifting opinions of people to know her worth. She doesn't wake up needing social media approval, the attention of others, or worldly success to feel secure. Her foundation is deeper than compliments, deeper than status, deeper than titles. She is anchored in something unshakable. Her values, those values guide her thoughts, shape her character, and direct her actions. They are not borrowed from culture. They are built on truth, tested by time, and refined through experience. She understands that if she chases validation, she becomes a prisoner to it. The moment people disapprove, she crumbles. But when she is grounded in values, honor, integrity, kindness, faith, and humility, she walks through both praise and criticism with peace. Because her identity is not for sale, it's not up for negotiation, It's not something she needs to earn every day. It's already been given to her by her Creator. She knows who she is, even when the world tries to tell her otherwise. In a world obsessed with appearance, she prioritizes substance. While others are busy curating perfect images, she focuses on building a life of meaning. While others are performing for attention, she is becoming someone worth following. She doesn't seek to be liked, she seeks to be real. And that authenticity is rare. That honesty makes her stand out. Because when you're not trying to impress, you are free to connect. And when you're rooted in values, you create a foundation that cannot be shaken by rejection, criticism, or loss. A godly woman knows that validation is temporary, but values are eternal. Validation comes and goes. One day you're loved, the next you're forgotten. But values carry you through the highs and the lows. They keep you centered. They help you make decisions not based on what's popular, but on what's right. They give you courage when the crowd goes silent. They give you clarity when everything else feels confusing. She doesn't need constant affirmation to keep going. Her affirmation comes from truth, from knowing she is loved, chosen, and called. And that knowing produces a quiet strength, a deep calm, and an unwavering confidence. Not arrogance, confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't scream, but simply shows up. The kind of confidence that doesn't need to argue, because it's already settled. The kind of confidence that can walk away from places that compromise her values, even if it costs her something. She chooses relationships that align with her values, not her insecurities. She surrounds herself with people who respect her standards, not just her beauty. She's not flattered by attention that disregards her worth. She doesn't lower her standards to be accepted. She raises her standard to honor her calling. Because she knows that the right people will recognize her value, not because she shouted it, but because she lived it. And when the world tries to define her by superficial labels, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't let failure define her. She doesn't let success inflate her. She doesn't let others determine her direction. She filters every voice through her values, every opportunity, every decision, every temptation, measured against the truth she stands on. Because when you're rooted in values, you don't drift with the wind. You don't chase every trend. You don't betray yourself for temporary applause. This woman knows that identity built on validation is fragile, but identity built on values is fierce. That's why she's not easily swayed by others' opinions. That's why she can say no when everyone expects her to say yes. That's why she can walk away from things that aren't aligned with her purpose. She has boundaries, not because she's proud but because she's clear. She protects her peace, not because she's cold but because she's wise. The world may not always understand her. She may not fit into the mold, but that's not her aim. Her goal isn't to blend in, it's to be faithful. Faithful to who she is, faithful to who she's becoming, faithful to the calling placed deep within her soul. And because of that, her presence carries weight. People sense something different in her. Not loud, not showy, but real, solid, consistent, trustworthy. She knows that living by values sometimes means walking alone, but she would rather walk alone in truth than be embraced by a crowd built on lies. She's not chasing applause, she's chasing alignment. And that kind of clarity makes her powerful, because when you know who you are, you stop performing, you stop pretending, you start living fully, boldly, honestly. That's where her strength comes from. Not from being validated, but from being grounded. Grounded in truth, grounded in purpose, grounded in unshakable values. She influences through service, not control. A godly woman understands that true power doesn't come from forcing people to follow her. It comes from serving them in ways that inspire trust, respect, and transformation. Her strength isn't loud, and her leadership isn't about domination. Instead, it is rooted in humility, compassion, and selflessness. She knows that influence built on control is fragile and temporary, but influence built through service is enduring and deep. Her goal isn't to manipulate outcomes, it's to uplift people and guide them toward what is good and right. In every space she enters, she looks for ways to add value. She's not measuring how much authority she has, but how much good she can do. She listens before she speaks. She gives before she takes. She chooses to understand before she judges. And because of this posture, people are naturally drawn to her, not because she demands attention, but because her presence brings clarity, stability, and encouragement. Service becomes the language of her leadership. She doesn't see herself as above others. She doesn't place herself on a pedestal. Instead, she kneels where others stand, and it is in that posture that her influence grows. She isn't afraid to roll up her sleeves and do the hard work. Whether in her family, her career, her relationships, or her community, she chooses to contribute rather than command. She doesn't just tell others what to do, she models it. She leads by example. She lives the values she teaches. Her consistency makes her trustworthy. Her humility makes her approachable. Her actions speak so loudly that people pay attention, even when she's silent. She doesn't seek control over others because she doesn't need to. She is already in control of herself, her emotions, her thoughts, her intentions, all disciplined and aligned with her values. That inner mastery gives her the ability to serve from a place of strength, not insecurity. When you serve from insecurity, it becomes manipulation, but when you serve from strength, it becomes ministry. She chooses the latter. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to pour out wisdom, encouragement, and grace. The godly woman knows that control is rooted in fear. Fear of being ignored, fear of being hurt, fear of being forgotten. But she has no need to control, because she trusts in something greater than herself. She walks in faith. She believes that by sowing good seeds in service, the harvest will come in time. So she doesn't force things to happen. She cultivates, she nurtures, she waits. That's not passivity, it's faith-driven patience. She influences not through pressure, but through presence. Her influence stretches far beyond what she can see. The people she's impacted carry her words and actions with them. They remember how she made them feel. They remember her kindness, her consistency, her courage. Influence through control leaves resentment. Influence through service leaves legacy. She chooses legacy. She knows that what people remember is not what she said to win an argument, but how she showed up when no one else would. She's not interested in winning over crowds by force or persuasion. She's interested in shaping lives through quiet, steady love. Whether she's raising a child, leading a team, mentoring someone in pain, or simply being present for a friend, she shows up with a servant's heart. That's her power. That's her secret. She doesn't need recognition to serve. She doesn't need thanks to keep going. She serves because it's who she is. It's how she reflects the heart of God. It's how she honors her purpose. She leads her home, not with control but with wisdom. She builds trust with her spouse not by demanding respect, but by giving it. She raises her children not with fear but with boundaries shaped by love. She guides them not with threats but with consistency and grace. That kind of leadership doesn't break spirits, it builds character. She brings peace, not chaos. She brings order, not fear. She brings calm, not confusion. And it's not because she controls the people in her life, it's because she's mastered the art of serving them with dignity. When conflict arises, she doesn't react with control, she responds with discernment. She asks, how can I help? How can I bring understanding? How can I show love even here? That mindset disarms the chaos. That posture brings healing. And in that moment her influence multiplies. Not because she made people do what she wanted, but because she reminded them of what's possible when someone leads with heart. She doesn't fear losing control because she never relied on it. She relies on grace. She relies on truth. She relies on the strength that comes from living a life of purpose and service. And that's what makes her unforgettable. Not the titles, not the position, not the authority, but the way she gave, the way she lifted, the way she served. That's what changes lives. That's what influences generations. That's what defines a godly woman. Her strength lies in faith, not fear. A godly woman doesn't pretend that fear doesn't exist. She knows fear intimately. She has faced uncertainty, loss, heartbreak, rejection, and the quiet weight of responsibility. But she doesn't allow fear to sit on the throne of her life. She doesn't let it guide her decisions or silence her voice. Instead, she turns toward faith. Faith in something greater, something eternal, something unshakable. Her strength is not loud or arrogant, but it is immovable. It is the kind of strength that refuses to collapse under pressure, because it's built on a foundation far deeper than comfort or safety. She has chosen to live a life that is not dictated by fear. Fear tells her to stay small. Fear tells her to avoid risk. Fear whispers that she's not enough, that she'll fail, that she should keep quiet and blend in. But she listens to a different voice. Faith tells her to rise. Faith tells her to speak even when her voice trembles. Faith tells her to step forward even when she can't see the full path. And because of that faith, she has learned how to move in courage, not because she's fearless, but because she refuses to be ruled by fear. This kind of strength is forged in private places. It's not about putting on a brave face for the world, it's about facing the storm within, and standing anyway. The godly woman has cried in silence, fought through loneliness, and wrestled with doubt. She has known what it means to pray without answers, and to keep going when nothing seems to change. But she has also known what it means to be sustained by something invisible, something real. She has seen how faith carries her when nothing else can. And that experience gives her a quiet confidence, a kind of resilience that the world cannot explain. Her strength doesn't come from perfection, it comes from perseverance. It comes from rising again and again, even when it would be easier to give up. It comes from trusting that there is purpose in the pain, meaning in the waiting, and growth in the struggle. She doesn't need to know how everything will work out. She just needs to know who she's walking with. That simple yet powerful truth allows her to walk into challenges with her head high and her heart steady. She isn't shaken by temporary storms because she knows she is anchored in something eternal. People often mistake her calm for weakness, but they don't see the depth of her faith. They don't see the hours she has spent in prayer, the nights she's spent wrestling with fear, the decisions she's made based on conviction rather than comfort. Her strength may not always look dramatic, but it is unyielding. When others fall apart under pressure, she holds firm. Not because she has all the answers, but because she trusts the one who does. When fear tries to speak, she listens to truth. She reminds herself who she is, and who she is. She reminds herself that she's been through worse, and came out stronger. She reminds herself that she was created for more than survival. She was created for impact. That reminder isn't rooted in self-help or self-talk. It's rooted in divine identity. She knows that fear may always knock at the door, but it doesn't get to live in her heart, because that space is already occupied by faith, and faith doesn't share territory with fear. She chooses daily to walk by faith, not by sight. That means she makes decisions based on values, not circumstances. She builds relationships based on truth,
not convenience. She pursues dreams even when they scare her, because she knows the size of the mountain doesn't matter when you trust the one who moves mountains. Her steps are ordered not by fear of failure, but by belief in purpose. And that belief gives her a unique kind of power, the ability to hope in dark places, to love in broken places, and to stand in shaking places. She's not reckless, but she is brave. Brave enough to wait when others rush, brave enough to stay when others leave, brave enough to forgive when it hurts, brave enough to hope when it's easier to quit. That kind of bravery doesn't come from within, it comes from above. And she knows it, she draws from it, she leans on it when her strength runs out, because faith doesn't mean she's always strong, it means she knows where to turn when she's weak. Her life is a testimony not of fear avoided, but of fear overcome, and that testimony carries weight. Others watch her, and wonder how she keeps going. They see her courage and feel inspired. They hear her speak and feel uplifted. They feel the peace she carries, and begin to believe it's possible for them too. That's the power of a godly woman. Her strength built on faith becomes contagious. It spreads hope, invites healing, and births courage in everyone around her. She nurtures growth by example, not demand. A godly woman knows that influence isn't about pressure, it's about presence. She doesn't force others to grow by criticizing their shortcomings or demanding change through authority. Instead, she cultivates growth by becoming a living example of what's possible. Her life is her message. Her actions carry more power than her words. She doesn't need to constantly instruct others when her consistency speaks louder than commands ever could. People watch her, and they begin to ask themselves, what is she anchored in? What makes her so steady, so gracious, so strong? She doesn't try to change people by controlling them. She inspires them by changing herself first. Growth begins at home, within her own heart. She takes responsibility for her reactions. She reflects on her choices. She admits when she's wrong and grows from it. She reads, learns, listens, and prays not to appear wise but to become more rooted in truth. And when others see her walk that path of quiet refinement, they realize they can do the same. Her life becomes a mirror, showing others the potential for change without ever shaming them for where they are now. She understands that real growth cannot be rushed. Flowers don't bloom because you yell at them. They bloom because you create the right environment. She creates that environment everywhere she goes. In her home, she creates space for learning and listening. She doesn't demand perfection from her children or her spouse, but she does model discipline, love, and integrity. In her friendships, she offers grace instead of judgment. In her workplace, she leads with patience and wisdom instead of pressure and ego. She makes it safe to grow, to try, to fail, and to try again. Her leadership is never about superiority, it's about service. She walks beside people, not above them. She doesn't act like she has it all figured out. She is open about her journey. She talks about where she started and how far she's come. She shares her struggles, not to seek sympathy but to offer solidarity. That vulnerability becomes a powerful tool. It lets others know they're not alone. And when people feel seen and safe, they open up to growth. She doesn't use guilt or fear to motivate people. She uses love and truth. She tells hard truths when needed but always with gentleness. She knows when to speak and when to stay silent. Her discernment allows her to water seeds at the right time. And because she's not trying to force growth, she doesn't get bitter when results take time. She trusts the process. She trusts that every act of kindness, every prayer, every patient conversation, it's all part of the unseen work that prepares the soil of the soul for transformation. Her example is not showy, it's consistent. Day after day she wakes up and chooses to be better than yesterday. She doesn't wait for applause. She doesn't expect recognition. Her motivation is internal, spiritual, rooted in obedience to something higher. And that silent strength becomes her greatest influence. People watch how she handles pressure, how she treats others who can't repay her, how she remains faithful when things fall apart. They notice her peace, they feel her warmth, and they begin to believe that growth is possible for them too. She sows in silence and reaps in transformation, not just in herself but in those around her. Her children grow up not just hearing about virtue but watching it in real time. Her community is strengthened not by her speeches but by her steady service. Her marriage is deepened not by demands but by quiet, unwavering love. She doesn't complain about what others aren't doing. She focuses on what she can do. And in doing so she creates movement. Growth becomes contagious. She believes deeply that if you want to lift others, you start by lifting yourself. That if you want to see change in the world, you must become the change first. And that mindset makes her powerful. Because she never tries to lead from a place of pride. She leads from a place of process. She's still learning, still growing, still becoming. And that humility draws others in. People don't feel judged around her. They feel challenged to rise higher. They don't feel pushed. They feel pulled by inspiration. They don't feel small in her presence. They feel seen. That is the gift of a woman who nurtures growth by example. Her life becomes fertile ground where others are free to bloom. She doesn't pressure the plant. She tends to the soil. And slowly, quietly but surely, things begin to grow. Lives change. Hearts soften. Futures shift. Not because she demanded it, but because she lived it. The world changes when women walk in divine truth. A godly woman is not simply following a set of moral rules. She is aligned with a truth that transcends culture, circumstances, and emotion. This truth is not shaped by the latest trend or swayed by public opinion. It is steady, eternal, and deeply transformative. When a woman roots her life in divine truth, everything around her begins to shift. She becomes a vessel of clarity in a world full of confusion. She brings light into dark spaces, not through noise or argument, but through the unwavering strength of truth lived out consistently. A woman who walks in divine truth knows who she is and why she's here. Her sense of identity is not borrowed from society or patched together by temporary achievements. She doesn't look for meaning in popularity or power. She draws her worth from something higher, something sacred. And because of that, she walks with a quiet confidence that is unshakable. She does not need to fight for recognition, because she already knows she is seen. She does not need to fear the unknown because she trusts the one who holds the future. Her presence in the world is not passive. It's intentional, grounded, and powerful. When she walks into a room, people feel safe. They feel seen. They feel challenged. Because she doesn't blend into the noise, she carries something different. She carries peace where there is chaos. She carries truth where there is deception. She carries purpose where there is confusion. And this isn't because she is flawless or superior. It's because she is surrendered. She has given herself to something greater than her own ambition. And in doing so, she has been given influence that stretches beyond her understanding. She lives by conviction, not convenience. She is willing to stand alone if it means standing for what is right. She is not easily swayed by pressure. And she doesn't compromise her values to fit in. She doesn't change her truth to match her feelings. She changes her feelings to align with the truth. That internal alignment becomes her compass. It directs her choices, her relationships, her words, and her silence. And people watch her and begin to wonder, what would it look like if I lived that boldly? She doesn't just speak the truth, she embodies it. Her actions match her words. Her life reflects what she believes. She lives with integrity, even when no one is watching. She treats people with honor, even when they don't deserve it. She makes hard decisions because she knows temporary discomfort is better than a lifetime of regret. That level of character is rare, and when people encounter it, they are changed by it. They begin to crave that kind of wholeness in their own lives. A woman walking in divine truth is not afraid of challenges. She faces hardship with her feet planted firmly, and her heart fully surrendered. She does not crumble under pressure because she knows trials refine her, not define her. She uses her voice not to dominate, but to declare truth with compassion. She doesn't seek to win arguments. She seeks to win hearts. And because of that, her words carry weight. Her influence doesn't scream. It whispers with authority. The world desperately needs women like her. Women who will stand for something deeper than opinion. Women who will live lives marked by truth, not performance. Women who will raise children with purpose, love their spouses with humility, serve their communities with joy, and pursue their calling with boldness. A woman grounded in divine truth becomes a force of transformation wherever she goes. She lifts the atmosphere of a room, not by demanding attention, but by simply being who she is without apology. Her truth is not a weapon, it is a foundation. It is not used to shame others, it is lived to set others free. People around her begin to realize that truth isn't rigid or cold, it is freeing, it is healing, it is empowering, and they want more of it. They want more of the peace she carries. They want more of the wisdom she shares. They want to understand the source of her strength. She walks in a way that makes others want to know what she knows, believe what she believes, and live how she lives, not because she tells them to, but because she shows them how. Her life becomes a testimony that truth is not just something to know, it's something to become. And when women all over the world begin to walk in that kind of truth, society begins to change. Homes become stronger, communities become healthier, relationships become deeper, generations are transformed, all because one woman chose to live in alignment with divine truth, and in doing so she gave others permission to do the same.